your fingers in your ears and imagine that this is how phone calls, right? Now take them out. Hello. Much better, right? Way better. And that's just a small example of an experience. You and I just shared an experience. You didn't hear very well. I was trying to say stuff. You may not have been able to hear me properly. But user experience has been around for a long time. In fact, in 1876, the microphone, not really like the one I'm talking in today. This one's really futuristic and Britney Spearsy. But the microphone was invented. And it was invented because voice quality on telephone calls was crap. And so a gentleman by the name of Emil Berliner decided that I wanted to make it better. So he experimented, he prototyped, he iterated. He worked really, really hard to figure out how to improve the quality of voice. And so that was important from a phone call perspective, but it was also important for humanity and history perspective. Some of the biggest and most important speeches, events, talks of our time have happened through microphones. And if the microphone hadn't been invented, if somebody hadn't said, this is a really shitty experience, I want to improve it, then we wouldn't have had the power that we have today with microphones. And I wouldn't be able to do this in front of you today. I'd be talking very loudly and it would be kind of awkward and strange. But that's user experience. And it's important that we don't forget that user experience is every experience. And this guy, Emil Berliner, helped make it happen, helped make voice, helped make the amplification of voice happen through the microphone. Everything, literally everything, and this is going to be really meta, everything is a user experience. What we're doing right now is a user experience. What I'm doing right now is my user experience. Let's go through your day. The bed you woke up in, probably not for this guy, but hopefully this guy because he's super cute. The tap you turned on in order to wash your hands, brush your teeth, have your face washed in the morning. The fancy towel you used when you walked out of the shower that you put on, the experience that was soft and luxurious and wonderful. The razor you used to shave your legs, shave your head, shave other parts. I shaved my head, I cut myself this morning, how cool. The makeup brush you used to put makeup on, how soft it was, how well it applied, all of the things and all the pigment that it attached to your face. The toothbrush you used, that's a really creepy photo. The clothes you put on, the underwear, the socks, the rings, the watches, the sweaters, the jeans. All of those things are an experience. It's a user experience. The TTC streetcar that you got on this morning, or didn't get on, and then got off because it's short term. And then you waited for a while, and you got back on again in the streetcar. The sidewalk you went down, the stairs you went up, the railing you held onto, the elevator you took, the coffee cup you held in your hand, everything you touched, did, saw, experienced was designed by something, by someone. And finally, you made it here in this room. And even this room is an experience. The way that I'm amplifying my voice, the screens you're seeing, the space in the room, the temperature, everything that's happening right now is a user experience. The chairs you're sitting on right now are a user experience. I just want everyone to take a minute and really think about your chair. Just kind of wiggle your butts around a little bit. It's a comfortable chair. And then I want you to think about something really important. Someone thought a lot about your butts when they were designing those chairs, right? They were just like, I'm going to make the most beautiful chair in the world. It's going to be gray. It's going to have metal on it. They were thinking about the people sitting in those chairs, right? And your butts feel good because somebody thought about your butts. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of awesome at the same time. So everything is user experience, right? Mind blown. One of the things I really want to get across today and talk to you about is the fact that when we speak about modern day UX, we talk about user experience. It's not just on the screen. It's not just the app that I'm building, the product that I'm trying to ship, the feature I'm just designing for somebody else. It's everything that happens around it, before it, after it, while it's happening. User experience doesn't stop and start inside the screen or when I launch an application and close it. It starts far before that and it finishes far beyond that. So we're going to talk about user experience in real life. So as I said, my name is Matt Roharski, very complicated last name. I appreciate it. And I work for this company, Filament, with these weird people. And we do user experience design, we do it every day. But I also work here. And I get to talk to lots of awesome people about user experience all the time. So I'm really thankful that I have the opportunity to talk to you all today. And I'm thankful to FITC for bringing me on board. I also do music for a little while. This is my dreamy music pose. I toured as a musician full time for many years. And you want to talk about user experience? Try being in a van with 5 guys traveling across the country. That can be a pretty sour user experience after a while. Now, in order for us to appreciate user experience as it is right now, we have to look back. We have to look back in time and understand what real user experience is. User experience is old, like super old, like Hippocrates old. And back in the day, Hippocrates described probably one of the first documented versions of what a user experience might be. He talked about how surgeons' workplaces, their operating rooms, should be set up. And the optimal way to set up an operating room in order for the surgeon to perform their job as effectively as possible. That sound a bit familiar? In terms of the features and things that we build into our applications, we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to make an audience and a user feel like they have all the tools necessary to get through an experience with as little friction as possible. Now, even around this time, before this time, let's talk about something that was a major human invention. The wheel. First of all, that photo is amazing. I'm so glad about it. But the wheel, if you think about it, was one of the earliest examples of a user experience. We had a problem. Couldn't get around and move large quantities of things because it was too difficult. And we needed to find a way to solve that problem. So the wheel, if you remember over time, it started off as this like really archaic looking wooden thing, and at the time they didn't actually have the tools to make wheels properly. So as the tools evolved, wheels evolved. And they tested and prototyped and iterated, and wheels broke, there was catastrophe, people died. It was a big deal. But as we, throughout history, became more aware of the fact that the wheel was an important invention, we perfected it. And some of the early prototypes didn't work out so well. We tried to make it an amazing invention so that we can move things, we can operate things. And I mean, the pottery wheel was something that happened a long time ago, and that was probably the first iteration of the wheel, but we didn't actually use it for transportation until much, much later. And today's wheel is ridiculous stuff like this, and we're still perfecting it. But now we're perfecting it based on performance and comfort in a ride. At the time, it was just for getting from one place to the next, as easily as possible. So the wheel is a great example of that type of user experience thinking. We have a problem, we need to solve it, there's ways you can build it and test it and iterate on it. Da Vinci was also a UXer. Back in the day, Da Vinci had a big feast to plan. They said, hey, Da Vinci, we need you to help plan this big feast for lots of people. And he said, sure, I'll take care of it. And what he ended up doing was creating one of the world's first conveyor belts to bring raw materials, food in this case, ingredients, through into the kitchen so that everybody preparing the food could do it as efficiently as possible. So in his time, it was about efficiency and about productivity, but it was also about the happiness of those people who were making the meal. He also, at this time, made one of the first sprinkler systems in case of catastrophe. Now, the entire experience, this entire feast, was a catastrophe because the conveyor belt moved too fast, ingredients kept falling off, they couldn't make the food in time, and they actually set off the sprinkler system and it got all the food wet. So, huge fail, but good learning as far as user experience goes. And that's what we talked about with Henry Ford, the assembly line, making things more efficient, making the tools more efficient, understanding that there was a problem and they need to increase productivity and creating a system in order to do that. Now, with Henry Ford, it was as much about capitalism and profit as it was about making people's lives happier. But there's an important lesson to learn here in that making the tools that people interact with easier, making the experience of creating those things easier, reducing the friction in a workplace, in a conversation, in an environment, can have incredible impact on the productivity and the effectiveness of that system. Someone else that we should talk about is super important is Patricia Moore. And how many of you know about Patricia Moore? So glad we're talking about her today. Patricia Moore is the matriarch of universal design. And back in the 60s and 70s, Patricia Moore went to extremes to understand people, to understand how they work, understand how they're treated in society. And it was about how she could move through society and accomplish everyday tasks in a way that brought out bias. So we're going to talk about her a little bit more in this talk, but she took empathy to an extreme, so much that she got beat up She got turned down, she got turned away, she was abused, to the point where she really understood how different members of society were being treated in a similar situation. We'll talk a bit more about her. But the era that I want to focus on the most right now for user experience in real life is the 60s. And in particular, I want to focus on this guy. We talked a lot about Disney today, the animation discussion, which was pretty awesome. But Walt Disney was probably the world's first user experience pioneer. User experience in real life. Who here has been in Disney World? God, it's a lot. Disney World's called the Magic Kingdom because from Disney World, we're supposed to get an experience that rivals, or that is unrivaled anywhere else. It's magical, it's wonderful, it takes us away from our everyday, it immerses us in an experience that allows us to feel delight and happiness, and that all of the problems of the world have melted away along the teacup ride. Yeah? Speaking of teacup ride, that was my only memory of Disney when I was a kid, and I barfed. That's an experience. So Epcot, for those of you who don't know, the acronym of Epcot stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Walt Disney was a wild innovator, brilliant mind, brilliant businessman. And the whole idea behind Epcot was so that he could prototype a community where the happiness of people, the understanding of the human brain, of the human condition, was something to be analyzed and experimented and iterated on. It sounds super creepy, like we're just going to take a bunch of people and try to make them better. But Epcot was a working prototype. It was a place for people to understand the inner workings of society and to figure it out as they went along. He also created Web, which was essentially a creative agency inside of Disney. And their whole purpose was this idea of Imagineering. Now, Imagineering was about creating experiences, creating immersive experiences so that people could be completely satisfied, be super happy about what's happening at Magic Kingdom. So going through the It's a Small World After All exhibit in Disney, people forget about all the things that are happening outside, and they're fully immersed in this idea of happiness. Who knows who Aaron Walters is? If you don't, you should, because he's a brilliant guy. And he wrote a book called Designing for Emotion. And in that book, he talks about the hierarchy of user needs. And notice it's not the hierarchy of really cool app screens. It's not the hierarchy of amazing features that we can build for our applications. It's the hierarchy of user needs. What do people want? How do we make them achieve the goals that they want to achieve? And it starts off as function, goes into reliability. I know that it's going to do the same thing every single time. Usability, anybody can use it. It's very easy to move through. And then it moves all the way up to delight. And we've heard a little bit about delight today, but making something delightful is really hard. And you can't do it unless you understand what people find delightful. And so with Aaron, he has a really wonderful analogy around food. He says, why would a chef just cook edible food when I can cook something delicious? So why would I do something so utilitarian when I can actually do something that is going to bring joy and delight and memory, a memorable experience to the people that are eating that food? And UX is the same way. If I don't understand what's going to make you happy, then I can't really make an experience that's going to allow you to achieve those goals that I want, but then feel really great about it when you're finished. Also, it's kind of strange that he's got Walt in his name. I'm just going to throw that out there. But let's dive back into Disney for a second. Inside of WED, which was the creative agency inside of Disney, they went on 10 very important commandments called the Mickey's 10 Commandments. And each of these commandments can be applied to modern day user experience design. And so I want to walk through them with you to talk about how we can apply them. The first one is know your audience. This is a core basis of user experience design. Who are my people? Who am I designing for? What do they care about? What are their frustrations? How can I make it so that what I'm designing is going to allow them to do what they need to do? I have to really understand. And so when we talk about user research, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Audience interviews, understanding demographic data, really understanding what kind of features our audience is going to want us to build and how to execute on those. That's about knowing your audience. Number 2 is where your guests choose, empathy, right? You know how many times I've heard young designers talk about a product or a feature or a service that they've designed, And then I go on to ask them, well, tell me about your user research. It's like, well, I went around the office and I asked a bunch of people what they thought about this feature. Or I asked my family, or I just thought that that's the way I use it. No, I don't like this particular thing, so everybody else must not like it. Ridiculous. Don't ever do that, please. Wear your guest shoes. You have to immerse yourself in an experience that is very similar to what they're going to do. And then you have to ask real people real questions about real experiences in order to understand what it is. Organize the flow of people and ideas. Storytelling. Storytelling is a crucial part of user experience design. If you don't know how a person is supposed to flow through the experience you're designing, then you haven't designed an appropriate experience, right? You need to understand where the finish line is, and you need to understand what it's going to take to get somebody from point A to the end. This one's a little interesting. I don't really, if I told somebody I was going to create a weenie today, that would be kind of awkward. It would be an awkward conversation. And my definition of a weenie is very different. Like, my use is like, that guy's a weenie, you know? But they call weenies, they're magnets, visual magnets. So you're leading users from one place to another and giving visitors rewards for making the journey. I don't know why it's called a weenie, it's really strange to me. There's no other explanation of that, but that's what they call it. But they're objects that are large enough to see from a distance and interesting enough to draw their attention. So in UI, these are things like buttons. These are form elements that we want people to interact with. These might be animations that we want to draw their attention to. But all of those things are weenies. Communicate with visual literacy. There's a big debate, and there has been for a while, about skeuomorphism. I'm sure we've all heard this very flat, skeuomorphic. You know? And I'm a big supporter of a hybrid of the two approaches. And it's because we're familiar with what is real. What's real in our world, shadows and light and physical objects and the way that they move, the way they interact with each other. But I'm also a fan of not overdoing it and understanding where the limitations are of user experience and of an interface to help people achieve their goals. So a good example of this is material design. We talked about that earlier too. It's not overdone, there's no texture, it doesn't look like leather-bound books, but there is the idea of space and time and motion that we have in real life. So communicating with visual literacy allows you to immerse people in an experience that they feel comfortable with. Avoiding overload. This one is super important. You know all those fancy things that we like to do in our UIs? Oh, well, we're gonna animate the button, and then we're gonna animate the text inside the button, and then the button's gonna change to purple. Then it's gonna flip around. Then a unicorn's gonna come out of the button. Then it's gonna make my breakfast. And then, you know, it's like, where do you stop? Gear down. Overload is something that we tend to do because we think it's cool, right? Coolness is not a principle of user experience design. As much as we like to have our design showcased on, design galleries, and we like to put things on Dribble, and get people to go, cool, wow, awesome. That's all the Dribble comments, by the way. Wicked, bro. A nice one. Overloading somebody with UI isn't accomplishing user experience goal. It's accomplishing a piece of art. And we can debate a lot about what the difference between art and design is, but that's not what this is talking about. Tell one story at a time. If you want users to achieve a task, then get them to achieve that one task in as simple a way as possible. Who's ever been on a blog, reading a blog post, it's like, oh yeah, I really do like that thing about the dog and the other thing. And then it's like, subscribe to our magazine, look at this other related content, sign up for a newsletter, It's like, just let me focus on the thing that you're asking me to do. And then the other stories can happen after, right? I can go to the bottom of the page and look at the related content. I can get to the bottom and sign up for your newsletter. Get out of my face, right? Avoid contradiction. So, in the commandments for Mickey's commandments, avoiding contradiction actually talks about brand. And it was argued that Walt Disney was one of the first people to talk about branding, advocate for branding. The idea that your brand stands for something, and everything you do that contradicts that something weakens the power of your brand. Now, we can do the same thing in user experience design. every time you get a user to perform an action that is similar, but then you treat it differently, you're contradicting the pattern that you've expected those people to understand. So for example, if I want you to swipe something, and I create a piece of UI that will indicate that you can swipe that element. Maybe I've designed a card on screen, and I've got another card that's just off screen so you can see it and grab it. If there's something else inside the application that you can do the same thing with, and I don't design it the same way, that's a contradiction. Because now I'm confusing you, going, well, I don't even know what to believe anymore. You know, what is real? What is life? What's that? You ask yourself all these existential questions after that. Next is for every ounce of effort, provide a ton of fun. Have you ever heard of gamification before? Right? The idea of gamification is this. Every time that somebody performs an action that you want them to perform, you reward them and you give them something to be delighted with. You know, if we're going to take it to the space level, it's like dog training. Now, I'm not equating people and users to dogs, but it's like the idea of, you know, very good, you did something really well, you get a treat, right? It's kind of weird to think about that. So when we reward people for positive inputs, then it becomes something they want to do more of. We're allowing them to get excited about the next action and immersing them even more fully into that experience. And the last one is the idea of keeping it up. Now this isn't like keep it up like, yeah, you're doing a good job, keep it up. This is the idea of maintenance, cleanliness, quality. For the Disney theme parks, this was about making sure the environment was really clean and making sure that everything was in its place. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm working, I need to have clean things. And I think it's because when I was younger, my mom was like Martha Stewart times 1,000. She would vacuum in the morning, and she would also vacuum in the evening. I still don't understand it, but that's what we wore slippers. Slippers were a huge thing in my house. Anybody else have to wear slippers in their house? Like mandated slippers? like even guests who like started mandating get rid of slippers. And my grandma made the slippers, so they're these big like babushka type slippers. And so like bringing girlfriends over for the first time, it's just like, you gotta wear the slippers, I'm sorry. So ingrained in me is this idea that productivity can't happen until things are in order. And so the idea of making sure your UI and your UX is clean. There's nothing superfluous, there's nothing extra, there's nothing that doesn't serve a very real purpose for that task. That's what it means by keeping it up. User experience is human experience. Again, we get so focused on little pieces of glass in front of us when we're designing our applications. And we talk about features and ROIs and conversions and all of the things that are important to the digital world, but we got to take a step back, really far back, and understand that user experience is everybody's experience. And we can use those ideas that what makes a person frustrated in real life is probably going to make them frustrated in our application, or on our website, or in our online course, whatever it is we're designing. So humans make about 35 conscious choices every day, 35,000. That's a lot of choices, right? We woke up, we decided what we're going to have for breakfast, what we're going to put on, how you open the door. All of the little things you do every day, those are little choices that you consciously make. And we even make about 200 decisions about food. You know, what am I going to have for lunch? How many pieces of pizza am I going to eat? You know? This arguably is a terrible decision. I don't know what this is, some sort of like egg hot dog concoction. But that's not a decision you want to make. The interesting thing is that the only time we're aware of those decisions, unless it's like a really big decision that we have to make, is when we get unexpected results. He was aware of that decision. So the unexpected results are the things that take us out of the flow of things. So we're moving along, we're having our morning, drinking our coffee, and then all of a sudden, something you're just like, oh, that, I wasn't expecting that. I like to call those WTF moments. What just happened? And so it's important that we as designers mitigate as many WTF moments as possible for our audience, right? So we're going through our day. These are all the great things that are happening. We're making decisions, life's going well, there's no friction, everything's going well. We're just whistling away like this cat, Felix. But then we put in a bunch of WTF moments, and it's like, oh my God, I'm getting more and more frustrated as I continue on with my day. So that could be anything from like, oh, my computer drinks Starbucks coffee. Less than I would have anticipated. So Starbucks, I'm gonna rip rain food. Starbucks, when they do your coffee to go, so you order it online on the mobile app and they get it ready for you, they put the lid on and they put that little green thing in the top to stop the heat from coming out of the cup. But what happens is, if it's in there too long, the steam actually will come out the sides of the lid. So then what happens is, as you're holding your coffee, it's like drip, 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 drip. And I don't know about you, but every drip just pisses me off even more. So by the time I get to the office, I'm like, just you put this thing down, I don't even want it anymore. So it's the idea of that frustration, little things. It's not even big things, it's little things that will bother you throughout the day. And by the end of the day, it's like, oh, that was a terrible day. No, my coffee spilled, and it's just a terrible day. But if we can remove some of those WTF moments, not only in life, but in our designs, then moving through that design is so much easier. It feels better, it feels happy. We're taking away the friction. And so if we remember that everybody's day is filled with those WTF moments, then as we design our applications and our services, then we can identify them a little bit more effectively by realizing that in the physical world, as we go through our own days, we have those moments and we don't want them. So let me ask you this. What's the first thing you do to wake up in the morning? Go. Food.
Drink a glass of water.
Jingle. You're very healthy. I appreciate that. What else do we do? Like first wake up. Like open your eyes. What do you do?
Hit the snooze button.
Check your phone.
Hit
What?
the snooze button.
Hit the snooze on your phone.
Yeah.
Right. Glass of water. I'm super impressed with you. We all pick up our phones, right? Pick me up. And it's like, it's like totally subconscious. Just wake up, boom, phone. So along with this, there's actually a metric, and I don't know if it's been made up, but I've heard it for a long time now. Time to screen. What's your time to screen? Oh, my time to screen is 3 seconds. TTS for short. So I'm not into sports at all. I don't really watch sports, but like TTS, it's a stat that I get excited about. So it's like, if someone says, what's your TTS? I can be like, 2. My TTS is 2 seconds. Really, it's like a 5, but like shit time. So time to screen is an important thing. Now let's talk about this thing. The phone dock. Who's got one of these? Like the Apple issued iPhone docks. Anybody? Person. How do you like it? We're not going for fine here, people. We're going for awesome.
You mean like when you pick up the phone and the dock comes with it?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Is that fine? It's garbage. That's what it is. That's what many Apples are garbage. Sorry, Apple garbage. The phone dock. So what this is a TTS killer. I can't look at my phone fast enough. It's stopping me because I pull it out and then you gotta push it off and then you pull it, push it, it's awkward. And maybe you got something on your nightstand, it knocks the furniture over, and people are awake, and babies are crying, it's bad, right? It's bad. That's a WTF moment. I've been there, it's not fun.
You need to crazy glue it.
Who wants to do that? Yeah, actually, anyways, we'll talk. So this is called the elevation dock. Who's heard of the elevation dock? You have, you don't have one, I'm sad. Okay. The elevation dock is this like really heavy, really monstrous dock for your iPhone. And the primary function is that it allows you to pick your iPhone up with one hand. So it stays put. They even have this like really cool surface underneath with like 1,000 suction cups that will stick it to the surface without crazy glue. You're on the right track though, that's good. So you can just pick it up, right? Time to screen, boom, pick it up, no problem. And so it's little inventions like this that help remove WTF moments. Great UX removes those WTF moments for us. It stops us from being frustrated. It's because somebody was like, God, that was frustrating. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make it better. And maybe it is crazy glue on an Apple dock. Like maybe that's the first prototype of the elevation dock, right? But somewhere, somehow, somebody's going, this has to be better. And as user experience designers, that's our job. Our job is to identify problems, whether a client comes to us with that problem or we have that problem ourselves, and make it better. That's what we do. Who knows this guy? Don Norman? Good, good, hands, good. So Don Norman wrote this amazing, if you're ever thinking of doing any sort of user experience design, which by virtue of the fact that you're here today, you are. Read this book. Wonderful book. It talks about a lot of the things that we're experiencing today, the design of everyday things. In it, he talks about objects like remotes. Who loves remotes? I don't know anybody who loves remotes. Anybody? You love remotes? Yeah, still looks good. Anybody else like remotes? No, remotes are super frustrating. Even so, my parents were babysitting last night. I have a 3-year-old boy. And I came home, and my dad was like, oh, super frustrated. I was like, what's up? He's like, well, it took me like 20 minutes to turn on your TV. In my head, I was like, 20 minutes? Jeez. But I have an Apple TV, and I have the remote for the main TV. And yeah, anyways, he was so confused. It took him a while. He was pissed off. And that's not what I want to come home to after the night. So all about it's not good. The other thing he wrote about was like light switches, face plates, door handles, faucets, anything that you use throughout your day. He wrote about them. And it's because a lot of them are just frustrating. You know, it's a lot of very wonderful engineering, not a lot of very wonderful experience. And I am a huge fan of engineers. I'm a huge fan of developers. I work with them every day, and I think they're incredibly brilliant. But user experience is an integral part of the building of any product. And it's something that we all have to do and think about in order to build really wonderful things. In the book, there's a thing called the Norman door. And really what the Norman door is in Don Norman's definition, this is a crabby door, right? How many of you have done this? Yeah, and what happens? You feel like an idiot, right? Oh God. There's actually a really great scene in the movie Snatch where they're trying to get out of the bank with that, and they close the security bars, come down, the security screen, and they're trying to get out. They're kicking the door, and they're doing this for a few minutes, and then they just kind of give it out. They're sitting on the floor, and their buddy comes in and he pushes the door open, and he's like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And they could have just pulled the door and been out of there in a second, but because they couldn't figure it out, they got stuck and they would have been arrested. Anyways, the Norman door is like a classic example of why we should be designing for real-life experiences, why we should think about these things. Now, I think the idea that we label doors is ridiculous. And the fact that as you're walking through something, it's got handles that are the same on both sides, which really, to me, indicate pull, because you grab the handle and pull it. And yet, I can't actually pull this door. I have to push the door, and then somebody was like, oh, we'll just put words in the door, and that's going to make things better. Right? So there's little things like this that are frustrating. It's frustration. It makes you feel stupid when you don't accomplish it properly. And so in the book, he talks about a couple ways you can solve this. One is by putting a flat plate on the door, which we've seen a lot of, and it works. Or those like push bar things, the ones that make so much noise when you go through, those work too. But it's little things like that that, as user experience designers, we have to recognize. You know, like, is the feature in your application a Norman door? Are you asking somebody to do something by making it way more frustrating than it has to be by not defining your controls properly, or not defining your UI, or not segregating things with hierarchy? You know, how am I supposed to know that you want me to do X if you haven't told me explicitly? So Mr. Norman has a lot of design principles. He's got 5 design principles. The first one is visibility. The more visible the functions are, the more likely the users are to know what to do next. Classic user experience. You know all the things we try and hide behind hover states and menus, and that's pretty cool. We're going to discover it. You know, don't make me discover stuff, just put it in front of me. Right? Feedback. You know, am I doing something right? And feedback could be a piece of animation. So in the last talk, he was talking about the shake. You know, I did something wrong. There's a little bit of feedback there saying, you did that wrong. That's great feedback. You guys hear feedback every single day. Every time you fill up that glass of water, what do you hear? Right? That's telling you it's almost full. And it's saying, you know, stop filling up the water glass. Imagine you didn't hear anything, or didn't get any sort of feedback, or maybe you were doing a closed container, you know, when you're filling up one of those water bottles, like a swell bottle, you're always like, and then it spills. Oh, God. So that is feedback, real world feedback. And you need to build it into your user experience. Constraints, restricting the interactions that can happen. Don't just assume that I'm going to know exactly what to do. Leave it on a path. You know, I have a goal, you have a goal, we all have goals. So make it so that that goal is easily achievable. Affordance. We've heard about affordance a couple of times today, and it's a super important concept in user experience design. But affordance, just like the Norman door, is I should know how to use something by the way that it's presented to me. So if it's got a handle, I expect that I can pull it, or that I can lift it up. And if that's not the way it can be used, don't give me a freaking handle, right? Affordance. Inside your designs, make sure that you give me the proper cues so that I can know what I'm supposed to do. Consistency. Again, if there's a button that I have to press to submit a form, don't make me click a link the next time. That's annoying, right? If there's a particular action that I expect when I do something wrong, make sure that that action happens every time. And lastly, not one of Norman's design principles, but one of my personal super important principles is empathy. And we talked about this a little bit before with Patricia Moore. And empathy is the understanding and the relation, or the relatability to how other people see things, do things, experience things. Patricia Moore actually dressed up. So she was working in an agency and she wanted to understand how people experience various situations. She dressed up in 9 different outfits, 9 different costumes, 9 different personas, and went through the streets experiencing everything from like trying to buy a newspaper to trying to buy groceries. And in order to do that, the reason she did that was to get empathy for the other people that were using the services and products that she was designing. And through this time, she got beat up by a gang. She almost got run over by a car. She was spoken to so rudely that she was in tears most of the time. And the reason she primarily did this was to understand the plight of the elderly. How do we design for people who are a little bit older than we are and may not have the same mobility, functionality that we have? How do I empathize with them? Now, I'm not saying you need to dress up in costumes and like go hang out and pretend to be an elderly person, but you do have to get into the person's shoes that you want to design for. Ask them questions. Be there when they're using products. Find out how they're doing things. Find out what their routines are like. We talk a lot about design. Design is this beautiful thing where everything magically comes together and you can make beautiful products. But we have to really appreciate everything that comes before it, and also everything that comes after it. At Filament, we do a lot of user research, a lot of audience research, and it's just as important to me what your morning routine is as it is to me whether or not you're going to use my feature. Because let's say you wake up, you're single, you wake up, you have your coffee, you read the paper, you either drive into work or walk to work or bike to work, and everything's great. You come home, you go out for dinner. If you have kids, that is not the reality. The reality is like, oh my God, it's 5:30, my kids are up, this is stressful. I get up, I make sure that my kids are dressed. I get to the house, it's a scramble, everything's stressful. And then I get to work, work's pretty cool, do my thing. After work, 5 o'clock, gotta leave the office, gotta go home and pick up my kid from daycare. And then I have to make dinner, put him to bed a decent hour, there's bed battles all the time, there's bath battles. And then he goes to bed, and I love him to death, but that's just the reality of my life. Now, the only time that I get to do research, or like have me time, is after about 9 o'clock at night. Otherwise, I'm at work or I'm in Deadland. Deadland is a great land, but it's still a land that has its nuances. So understanding what people are doing every day, understanding what their mental models are when they come to your product, is going to help you design your products. Am I stressed? Do I have 20 minutes to research something? Sure I do. So make sure that I can get the thing that I need as quickly as possible. User experience design is a lot of different types of design rolled into one. It's cognitive science, it's ergonomics, it's product design. It's anything that people will come into contact with where they need to use something, or they have to experience something, or feel something, or do something. That's user experience design. It's not just screens, it's not just apps, it's not just features, it's not just websites. User experience is the human experience, everybody's experience. And what we just did here today, this was user experience. Could we have made it better? Taking these pillars out probably would have made it better. But it also would have collapsed the entire building. So that's not a good idea. But we need to be aware of these things and feel like or understand how real life experiences transform into digital experiences. And here's an example. Empty states. You ever been the first person at a party? It's kind of like, those noodles and chips. First person at a party is like, I kind of think I know what I'm supposed to do here, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to do here. Or ever been in an empty room? Like nothing? Probably not, because that's weird. It is empty rooms. But the idea is that I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. I haven't experienced this environment enough to know what to do. And so if you remember that feeling of like, how does this really operate? There's music going at the party, there's a bowl of chips over there, I think I could dance maybe, I don't know what to do. Think about how people come into your application, right? When I first arrived there, what am I supposed to do? If you don't tell me or give me some indication of the things that I can do, I'm gonna leave, because it's uncomfortable. I don't feel like I belong. And you want people to always feel like they belong, and always feel like they can do something wonderful. So think about that, real world experiences. Now before I wrap up, I want you to remember one very, very extremely important thing when you're designing user experience, designing digital things. I want you to remember to think about somebody's butt. So I think we have a couple of questions, is that right? Just got a question there that I answered.
So you mentioned, so you touched a while ago on user experiences and human experience. So I think that's a very valuable perspective. So it's just that there are also those days in which there will be people that will ask you straight out of the ballpark, how do you measure success? And usually that's code for thinking of user experience success in terms of hard numbers or something. So how do you reconcile that that it's not necessarily all about just the conversion rates or the click-through rates or whatever, but also the life factors, all those soft metrics. How do you make that? How do you hold that line?
Sure. So the question was, other than like hard numbers, hard metrics, when somebody's asking you to measure success, how do you measure the soft stuff? How do you measure happiness? Is basically the question. That's a big question. When it comes to UX design, when we talk about success with our clients always have some sort of metric. You're right. We want more conversions. We want more people to sign up for our newsletters. We want more people to buy our stuff. We want more people to donate money to our cause. Those are things we can't forget about. That's why we're hired in the first place, right? So it's important for us to achieve those, but it's important that people understand, that your clients understand that somebody's happiness is directly tied to their willingness to interact with your brand. So while you can't necessarily measure happiness, there's a much higher likelihood that someone's going to convert when you've removed everything that would make them unhappy. And the only way to figure that out is by testing it. So you design solutions, you design prototypes, you test the shit out of them, and then you put your best foot forward based on the knowledge you have. And once you do that, then you test them more. Once it's live, you get a lot more quantifiable data and really understand what the pitfalls are. And that's where things like Google Analytics and all those kind of metrics come in, because you can measure where people are potentially getting frustrated. That's where they're leaving, right? Why are they leaving? Well, let's find out. Let's go talk to some users, get them to use the application or the website, and find out what's happening. So you can't really go in and say, we're going to increase people's happiness by 20%. Sweet, right? You focus on metric, but there's a lot of indicators that can help you understand when people are getting frustrated. Anybody else? Cool. Thanks very much.